Decorative glass has survived the volcanoes of ancient Pompeii, the fall of the Roman Empire, religious and political upheavals throughout the world. And today, American glass artists have soared to heights never imagined by their ancient counterparts. I'm Bonnie Montgomery, and this is Simply Country.
Simply Country is sponsored by WMIL FM 106.
The best change
The Stanford Art Glass Studio in Menominee Falls. When we think of decorative glass, we generally think of stained glass, and then mostly associated with churches, temples, and cathedrals. The power of stained glass to move and inspire is undeniable. But you may not know that there are some fabulous things going on in the areas of stained and art glass right here at home, for the home. And there's no better example of the diversity of glassworks here in the Midwest than Stanford Art Glass Studio. Just what is the difference between stained glass and art glass? What about beveling, engraving, and glass fusing? We'll be discussing these topics and more, as well as taking a look at some spectacular examples. So, let's get started. This is Dick Manders. He's the owner of Stanford Art Glass Studio. Thanks for inviting us here today, Dick.
My pleasure.
You have such wonderful stuff here. How long have you been working in art?
Bonnie, I've been doing this for 16 years now.
I really don't have a clear picture of what these different kinds of things are, so why don't we go through that?
Sure.
What are the different kinds of things that you do here?
Okay, primarily what we do here is the art glass that you see behind you and next to you. We do Tiffany method leaded lamps and windows, custom designing, a lot of that. But we also do glass beveling, glass engraving, glass bending, and glass fusing. So just about anything there is to do with glass.
Sounds like a lot of stuff, but I'm going to have to backtrack because I don't know what a lot of that is.
Okay.
So what is the difference between stained glass and art glass?
Okay, true stained glass had its beginnings in the 17th century. It actually starts out to be clear glass where the glass is painted and the paint is applied to the surface and then it's fired in a kiln to about 1200 degrees. The paint is basically crushed glass, starts out to be crushed glass, and we apply it with either a medium of water or we mix it with oil or in some cases alcohol, depending on how fast we want it to dry. It's put on the surface, put in a kiln, and fired to 1200 degrees, which remelts the surface of the original glass, melts the glass chips that we're painting on into the glass, and it becomes one. Mm-hmm. It's a permanent type thing.
And then the art glass is?
The art glass actually has the color in the glass. Mm-hmm. Each of the pieces of glass that you see here start out as big sheets of glass with the color and the swirls and everything within the glass, and what we do is to take those sheets, cut it up, and choose the areas that we want of the glass and design.
So that's
or
more
paint
like
with the glass.
Putting the pieces of a puzzle together.
Exactly.
In the painting.
Exactly.
All right, and what is beveling?
Okay, glass beveling is actually a piece of clear glass, normally 1/4 inch or thicker, where we cut to shape and bevel the edges or miter the edges, as you will. And there are 4 or 5 steps to that. Cutting the glass. We also go into a rough cut on a steel wheel, and we go into an aluminum oxide wheel where we smooth it, and then we have 2 polishing stages where we use pumice on a cork wheel, and then we use cerium oxide on a felt wheel to get our final polish.
Sounds like a long process.
It really is.
We can't talk about glass without bringing up the word Tiffany. What
Right.
is Tiffany style or Tiffany design?
Okay, everything we do here in the studio, for example, this lamp or the pieces behind you, are done in the Tiffany method, which is basically each piece is cut to a pattern or a cartoon, then the glass is wrapped in copper, and that's really the key to the Tiffany method. Tiffany actually invented that method back in the late 1800s. Each piece is wrapped with copper, and then the glass is all laid together, in this case, over a form. Mm-hmm. In the case of a window, just flat on a table on the pattern, and it's all soldered together. And of course, that's where you get the strength. You can see the real fine, delicate lines here, and yet this is a very strong unit.
Right.
It's not going to fall apart.
And yet it does look very delicate.
Yes,
It's
it is.
beautiful.
It is very delicate.
Now, the Tiffany design that is with the smaller pieces
Right.
of
Now,
glass.
this is a classic example of a Tiffany design. This is the Tiffany cherry tree lamp. And it's, of course, a copy of an original. And Tiffany's design was very small, intricate. He used a lot of little pieces, a lot of plating, one piece behind another to get the right color, as opposed to the window behind you is Tiffany method, but it's not necessarily of the Tiffany design.
Now, Dick, are people using this kind of art, glass work in their homes if they've got a country decor?
Very definitely.
It fits in?
Very definitely. Perhaps not a lamp like this, which is very intricate, but we do a lot of more simple lamps, a lot of more country designs, and as far as windows too, we do a lot of designs that are less Art Nouveau or Art Deco and get in more to the country feeling.
And are more people coming in and asking
Yes,
for that?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
As we're building a lot more homes and bigger and better homes, a lot of people are using this as a way of collecting artwork.
Wonderful. I think now is the time to find out all of the work that goes into this. So when we come back with more of Simply Country, Dick's going to show us how he puts this together.
The country decor you've always wanted is at Victoria's Stencil and Country Shop, located on Pilgrim and North in Brookfield in the Pilgrim Square Shopping Center. Victoria's has a wide selection of everything you need for country decorating, including the largest selection of stencils in the Midwest. Victoria's can even custom make one for you. Looking for decorating ideas? You'll find trained consultants to help. Window treatments, furniture, country rugs, linens, gift items, and collectibles. For all your country home decorating needs, visit Victoria.
Now we get our lesson in how this is done. Dick, we learned a little bit about the different kinds of artwork that you do here. What do we have here? What are you going to be showing us today?
Okay, what we have here is a small studio panel, and we've got most of it cut in progress here. What I'd like to do is just show you briefly how we cut the glass, how we foil it in the Tiffany method, and then we'll move on and actually show you how we solder it.
Okay, great. So what's first?
All right, basically what we're doing is making a score or a fissure in the top surface of the glass. And it's just a very simple matter of making a couple cuts.
Obviously, that's a sharp tool. You
Right,
didn't
this
seem
is
to
a
push very hard.
This is a carbide wheel.
Okay.
It's supposed to cut 36 miles of glass.
36 miles.
Right.
Of glass.
Okay, and it's a matter of just, this is a grossing pliers or breaking pliers, putting it right on the line and breaking the piece off. Do that one more time.
And how long does it usually take to make a completed piece of work for
Okay,
something that's about this size?
These little panels we can do in a day. Okay, well, that piece is all cut. Basically, just going to sand it a little bit here. Take some of the sharp edges off. Okay, this is where the Tiffany method begins, wrapping each piece with the copper foil. And basically what we're doing is just laying the glass onto the foil and pulling it tightly around the glass. The copper does have an adhesive on it. In this case, the back is black, so that when the finished product is done, you don't see the bright, shiny copper shining through the glass. Anytime we use a clear glass or a real translucent glass, we use a black back copper.
Oh, I see. For some reason, I was thinking it was going to look like this, real shiny and coppery, but
No,
I guess I'll find out by the time we're done here.
It gets treated with a patina, which turns it a dark copper. And the idea of that is when we get to the soldering segment, you'll see that the solder is silver. And when you see a finished piece soldered, all you look at is this bright, shiny, just kind of like you see here. This is very bright and shiny with the copper, and you don't get to appreciate the glass. So what we do is put a patina on the glass to darken the copper so that the solder line is just a vehicle that holds the glass together rather than something important. Because what you're supposed to be appreciating is the beauty and the color of the glass. What I've done now is I've wrapped the copper all the way around the glass. And now I have a burnishing tool. I'm actually burnishing it down tight because that's one of the keys to the Tiffany method, the fact that the copper is tight to the glass, and then when it's soldered over, there is no airspace in there. It's a solid unit. Gives it a lot of strength. And there's your piece.
Just like a puzzle.
Right.
Okay. Then what do we do?
Okay. What we do then is the soldering stage. And what we need to do is just put a flux on here. This is a water-soluble flux that we mix ourselves. And what we do is just coat all of the copper joints with this. And it's actually an acid. It cleans any oxidation off of the copper so that the solder will stick to it. And this particular flux is mixed so that it also helps the solder flow very easily.
Where would somebody put a piece like this in their home?
Okay, these are little accent panels that people can hang in their window. We do quite a few of them. They make excellent gifts, wedding gifts, things like that. Also, again, if people bring in color samples, floor covering or wall covering, we can work with those and match them. Okay, basically on the soldering, what I'm going to do is just tack it in a few places so it doesn't move. Now the solder will not stick to the glass. That's why we're using the copper. So if you see a few little bubbles running off, it doesn't really hurt anything.
So it sticks to the copper and not to the glass?
Right.
Oh, okay. And then just all of the connecting points for...
Right, just to keep it from moving. Because once you start soldering, if a piece moves, it's there. Okay. Then we use a wet sponge to keep the iron cool, and then it's just a matter of actually running a bead of solder.
And how long does this take to dry, or do you wait for it to dry?
Actually, it hardens almost instantly. You can see that, when I touch this now, it's no longer liquid. Yeah. It's still very hot because we're working at about 400 degrees at the end of this tip. So you don't want to touch it.
Yeah. Now, if somebody wanted to learn how to do this, where would they go?
Okay, they would go to Stanford Art Glass.
Oh.
We teach classes here. We teach classes not only in the leaded glass, the Tiffany method, but we also teach beveling and engraving, glass fusing, glass carving, and glass bending.
And which would you say is the most popular?
Well, most people start out with the leaded glass. The glass beveling and so on doesn't really do you a lot of good unless you know how to put it together. Okay. Just as an example, take this one apart. This is an example of the beveled glass, and also an example of engraving. The engraving is actually carved into the glass with a wheel.
It's beautiful.
And of course there are more beveled pieces. The edge here, the mitered edge, is actually the bevel.
So what's next in our process? Do we solder this?
Okay, once we solder the whole piece, then it's treated with copper patina, like I mentioned, and we put zinc around it, and this is the finished piece here.
This is what that will look like eventually. Yeah?
You can see the difference between the bright solder here and, and the copper and the finished piece.
So could someone come to you with their own design or an example from a book or something like that, and then could you copy that for them?
Yes, we do that very often. We do a lot of our own designs, but we also work with other people's designs.
And is that what I'm seeing right here on the edge of the table? This is beautiful.
In this case, the customer came in and they're a fancier of the original Tiffany work and brought in a book with a picture of a Tiffany window. And this is just one panel that we're doing of a multiple, actually a triple panel.
So this will be the same kind of work that we just saw here with
right.
cutting
Each
and
piece,
putting together.
only it's a lot more meticulous. You can see a lot of the pieces are very, very small. Each piece is individually hand cut and ground and wrapped in copper and then soldered.
Good. And how long would something like this take you to complete?
Okay, this particular window is going to be about 4 weeks in the making.
Wow. Obviously a lot of hard work.
A lot of work.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I think that we should come back after this and look at some of these wonderful finished products and learn more about art glass, stained glass, and all kinds of glass work. Coming up on Simply Country. Now on Simply Country, it's time to take a look at some of these wonderful finished products. So why don't you lead us through some of the things that you have here, Dick?
Okay, Bonnie. First of all, we do, as we mentioned earlier, glass beveling and engraving, and this is a good example of both. I don't know if you can really see the engraving on there. This is actually carved into the glass with a wheel turning, and the glass is applied to the wheel, and the design is carved in. We make a lot of candle holders and things, as you can see, with the bevels and the engraved combination. They make excellent gift items.
This looks interesting.
Okay, this is a wedding box. This is something I designed about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's really taken off. We actually custom make each box to the color and the design of the invitation, and also we put the inside of the invitation on the inside of the box.
Beautiful. All
So
right.
we've done quite a few of those.
Now, there was one thing that I wanted to ask you about, and that was glass fusion.
Okay.
Fusing.
Glass fusing.
Fusing.
Glass fusing.
Okay, and what is
It's
that?
actually taking several layers of glass, or more than one layer of glass, laying them on top of each other, and instead of letting them together, we actually melt them together.
You have some examples, I guess.
Yes, we do. It's a little bit complicated in that the glass has to be compatible. You just can't take any 2 pieces of glass and lay them together. But here's one example of a dish that we did. We have a base of 2 layers of glass, actually, and then on top of that, we've applied the different colors of glass. As far as the little yellow and green in the middle, we laid a piece of yellow on top and then little green chips of glass in there. So they all kind of melt together.
And I see you have some pins and earrings here, and this is the same process that you
Right,
use?
this is glass fusing, and we were very fortunate enough to be commissioned to make a limited edition of pins for a fair here in the falls called the Cherry Fair.
Cherry Fair.
And this is their 25th year. The proceeds go to the hospital, and they asked us to design something with the cherry theme. So these are going to be sold at the fair as a limited edition.
You also have some blown glass here, too. Even though you don't do it here, you say that you do have some of it.
Right, we do. Tiffany himself did a lot of blown glass, and he was considered one of the experts of our past century. Today, there's a man called Charles Lawton who lives in Illinois, who is doing blown glass, and he is second only to Tiffany. He does some beautiful work, and we have work on display here in our showcase. We carry his work. I collect some of his work. Also, his 3 sons and 1 daughter are now artisans in glass blowing, so it's become a real family tradition.
And we also can see some beautiful lamps that you have here. They really are outstanding. Let me ask you about our country decorating, though. If I have a room and I've got my country decor, and I come to you and want you to make a lamp that would go in that room, what are some of the things that I should keep in mind when I'm choosing colors and styles?
Okay, primarily we have a lot of people that come in with floor covering, wall covering, can be important. As far as colors and things like that, the only thing you have to be careful of is that these lamps and windows are going to outlast your wall covering for many, many, many years. So you don't want to get too tied into that. But colors are very important. A lot of the colonial blues and the mauves are being used now, both in the country and in traditional decorating.
I also want to ask you about the paintings that you have in your store here. There's some stories that go behind it, and what are those all about? Okay,
the paintings that we carry, I started out by buying one of these paintings. The paintings are done by a man named H. Hargrove. He makes limited editions, unlimited editions. The one painting we have here on the wall today that we're kind of proud of is a very new one by Hargrove that was the first thing he's ever done on Milwaukee. He's featured a lot of small-town Americana and farm scenes and a lot of the Amish and things like this. But he's also focusing in on American baseball and towns. And this particular one is, like I said, the first one he did on Milwaukee. And it's taken from a picture back when Pabst actually won the Blue Ribbon for their beer.
Hey, that's
so
great.
It's kind of interesting, and I think they're going to go real fast.
Well, obviously, they would look beautiful in a country
Yes, they
decor
would.
home, as would many of the things that you have displayed here. Thanks for inviting us
Well,
here today,
thank
Dick.
you very
We
much for
learned a
coming.
lot.
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. And if you have any questions about anything that you've seen here today, remember, you can contact Stanford Art Glass Studio. Now, that's it for this week's show. Next week, we'll be joining you from Cudahy News and Hobby. Remember, if it's country, you'll see it here on Simply Country.
Interested in having your business be